Rain slammed the broken streets of East Fall in heavy sheets. Commander Naomi Sinclair crouched beside her beat-up Navy sedan, her gray hoodie soaked and clinging to her skin. A thin stream of blood traced down from her forehead, but she stayed steady. Through the downpour, she locked eyes with three figures stepping into flickering light of a dying street lamp. Men she had once trusted with her life. Leading them was Captain Darrell Boone, tall and rigid with purpose. Behind him, Officer Miles Kendrick watched her sharply, suspicion burning in his gaze. Beside them, Officer Eric Voss swept his flashlight across Naomi's face, the beam accusing. None of them seemed to recognize her like this. Not in plain clothes, not without her badge, not off the pedestal. But Naomi knew this wasn't a mistake. It was planned. She had recruited these men, taught them tactics, believed in their honor. Now, their guns were pointed right at her. Quietly, Naomi tapped her phone's lock button twice through her hoodie pocket, starting a covert recording. Her breathing stayed calm as she took in Boone's rigid stance, Kendrick's curling sneer, and something strange glinting in Voss's gloved hand. Moments earlier, they had dragged her from her car, slammed her into the hood, and searched the interior. It was all for show, a setup, all because Naomi Sinclair, a black woman, was next in line to run the East Fall Police Department. And some men couldn't handle that truth. The council had already voted, but it wasn't public yet. Naomi had chosen to spend these last quiet weeks undercover, driving unmarked, listening to the city she'd soon lead. East Fall's polished surface had deep, rotten corruption, protected by silence and power. Boone was the old guard everyone assumed would take over. Everyone except Naomi and the mayor. License and registration, Kendrick barked, rapping on her window before she could even park. "Can you tell me the reason for the stop, officer?" Naomi asked, her voice calm. Voss stepped closer, his flashlight steady. "Nice ride." "Sure, it's yours." "I bought it. I'm in law enforcement," she replied. They didn't move. "Step out," Kendrick ordered. Naomi obeyed. As she reached into her glove compartment, Kendrick muttered, "Smells like weed." "I do not consent to a search," Naomi stated, her gaze firm. Voss shoved her forward, slamming her head into the hood. Warm blood trickled down her temple, but she kept her balance. No sudden moves. Boone Warren, his handcuffs snapped too tight around her wrists. "Found something," Kendrick announced, holding up a small plastic bag. "Looks like we got a dealer." Naomi stayed silent, her phone still recording under her wet sleeve. Across the street, neighbors peeked from porches, some filming with phones. Naomi noticed them all witnesses, requesting backup to South Ivy intent. Boone spoke into his mic, "Narcotics in vehicle." Suspect resisting. But she wasn't resisting. She was observing, calculating. Minutes later, a second squad car arrived. Officer Jackson Rohr stepped out, coat open, badge shining, swagger in his walk. He stopped in front of Naomi and raised an eyebrow. "So how we playing this?" "Soft or hard?" "I'll cooperate." Naomi offered. "Too late," Rohr smirked. With rough force, he spun her and shoved her shoulder into the car. "Hands on your head," Kendrick growled, leaning close enough that she smelled stale coffee. "Women like you always think you're untouchable," Rohr hissed in her ear. "Not in East Fall, sweetheart." Naomi tilted her wrists slightly, keeping the recording running, letting everything be documented. Kendrick rummaged through her car with fake determination. Voss crouched, slipping something under the seat. Boone read from a laminated sheet listing false charges. "She's got no ID," Kendrick announced. "Claims she's a cop," Voss added, amused. But they were starting to look nervous now. Naomi had once busted a trafficking ring that ran from Chicago to Atlanta. She led federal task forces and trained agents who now guarded embassies. She knew exactly how men like this operated in the shadows. But this time, they weren't alone. A small crowd had gathered. 10, maybe 12 people, some recording everything. One teenage girl stood front and center, phone held steady and unafraid. "Suspect found in possession," Kendrick sneered. Boone spoke up loudly. "Vehicle matches tip from dispatch." Naomi raised an eyebrow. She knew there was no tip, just their own panic showing. Across the street, a child's voice cut through the rain. "Why is she bleeding?" Silence followed, and Roar's face turned hard. "Get them back," he ordered. Voss stepped forward, hand resting on his holster. Naomi didn't flinch. She turned a little toward the squad car, catching a reflection in a rain puddle. Boone quietly slipping something into the back seat. She burned every move into memory. "Wrap it up," Kendrick muttered. "She doesn't talk. She doesn't fight," Boone said. "What is she hiding?" Naomi slowly lifted her gaze, locking eyes with the teenage girl still filming. The girl gave a small nod, but then a siren wailed in the distance, growing louder. Roar's radio crackled. "All units at Ivy and 10 standby. Command override." Boone stiffened. "What was that?" Kendrick's head jerked up. "Did they say command?" Naomi managed a faint smile, blood still dripping down her face. They had no clue what was coming. The rain had stopped, but the damage was done. Naomi Sinclair now sat inside a small holding cell, bruised, bleeding, and silent. Her wrist throbbed from where the cuffs had cut too deep. Her lips split from Kendrick's shove. The air reeked of bleach and rust. She knew this booking room well, but this time, she wasn't doing the booking. This time, they were trying to erase her. Outside the door, she heard laughter. Officers Kendrick and Roar joking, thinking they'd buried her under lies and fake evidence. At first, they hadn't recognized her in her trench coat and in the storm. But once they did, their smirks had only deepened. "You're just a woman with a badge," Roar had sneered. "You forgot who runs Eastfall." But she hadn't. Captain Darrell Boone burst into the room, voice sharp. "Open it." Roar hesitated. "Sir, I said open it." The door clanged as it swung open. Boone stepped in, towering over her, jaw clenched. "Naomi," he said, voice low. "What the hell happened out there?" "You tell me," she shot back. "Your men beat a black woman unconscious in the street. They planted drugs. They scared witnesses. And now they laugh about it." Boone's face twitched, and he looked away. "I've got everything," Naomi continued firmly. "Body cam footage, civilian videos, my own recorder. And if you think I didn't send copies to the state attorney general before I even left my car, you've forgotten who I am." Boone swallowed. "It's complicated." "No," she said, forcing herself to stand despite the pain. "It's criminal." Silence settled over the room. Then a knock broke it. A young black female officer, Davis, stepped in. "Sir, Internal Affairs is here. So is Councilwoman Reyes. And the media is outside." Naomi met Boone's eyes. "You're out of time." 20 minutes later, Naomi stood on the steps of Eastfall PD. Her bruises were visible, but her dignity was unbroken. Behind her, Kendrick and Voss were led away in handcuffs, badges taken, heads lowered. Roar tried to explain, "We didn't know who she was," but it only made things worse. Naomi stepped forward as cameras flashed, the crowd buzzing. "This isn't about who I am," she began. "It's about what I represent. If I hadn't been a police officer, if I had been any other black woman on that street, I might not be standing here." Reporters leaned in, the moment tense. I was profiled, assaulted, framed by men sworn to protect us. They didn't see a citizen. They saw a threat. And that's why change in Eastfall can't wait. Her voice didn't shake. It echoed through the cold morning like thunder. I will not be silent. And I won't let this department bury another name. Cheers rose from the crowd. Councilwoman Reyes nodded behind her, solemn. Then Naomi turned to leave, but a hand brushed her shoulder. It was Boone. "They're gone," he said quietly. "But, Naomi, you started something. There are others." Naomi's eyes narrowed. "How many?" Boone looked down. "Too many." She nodded slowly. "Then we keep digging." He hesitated. "You think this ends with Kendrick and Roar?" She shook her head. "No, but it ends with me, because I'm not afraid to pull up the roots." As she walked down the steps, her phone buzzed. A new email had arrived. Subject: Internal Officer Reports, Eastfall Division 2015 to 2024. She scrolled past lines of blacked out names until one note caught her eye. Lieutenant M. Kendrick involved in for civilian complaint of excessive force. All dismissed, no internal investigation. Below that, it read, case reopened, per Chief Sinclair. A faint, determined smile crossed Naomi's face. The storm had passed, but the reckoning was just beginning.